And a good football Friday, free agency Friday here on Birds 365. You got me, Jody Mack, along with my partner, John McMullen, to shoot the breeze about the Birds with you for the next 2 hours. We got two good guests scheduled to jump in over the course of the next two. Johnny Mack, I got to be honest. I had already gone to bed last night to watch the late night NCAA tournament games. I already knew that, all right, Gardner Minshew, we hardly knew that he was going elsewhere and signing with the Indianapolis Colts to reunite with Shane Steichen. But I did not know who the Eagles' backup quarterback was going to be until I put my computer on this morning and found out the do the deal guy, Marcus Mariota.
Do the deal. The deal
About
is
how
finally
many
done.
years too late is
8 years,
Marcus Mariota showed
I
up here?
believe. 8 years too
Eight
late.
years after a good portion of the Eagle fan base,
Yeah, they didn't
aka
have to give up two first-round picks,
no,
Sam Bradford and Fletcher Cox, to get it done either.
yeah,
So,
they did not. All they had to do was pay him and pay him less than the going rate for backup quarterbacks, but more than what Shane Steichen was willing to pay to get Gardner Minshew to come and be their backup quarterback. It is amazing when you talk backup QBs. It's the only position where you're very concerned about having the right one and then rooting for him to never get on the field.
yes,
Please
exactly.
just stay there on the
Yes.
sidelines, Marcus. We want Jalen Hurts to play all 17 games. But I was a fan of his potential to come here because I do believe if you've got a backup quarterback who can do things like, not exactly like, otherwise he'd be your starting quarterback. He's a light version of your starting quarterback. Marcus Mariota is still very good at running the ball and potentially running RPOs and zone reads and everything else. If you've got a guy who can somewhat assimilate what your starting quarterback does when he's in there, it's a leg up. It's a plus. You got to be as good a quarterback at doing everything else, which I think Mariota is compared to all the other backup quarterbacks that have signed this offseason. And if you get the added bonus of the change in the way that you call plays when you put your backup quarterback into the game is negligible, I just think that's a plus.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you in the category of let's hope we never get to see him play. I mean, and that's where you are with when you have a good quarterback in the NFL. That's where everybody is. They never want to see the backup. But I have no problem with him being the backup. I mean, he's a capable guy, ton of experience. That's what you want in a backup quarterback for the most part. Somebody who's not going to fall apart in a big moment, and you hope he can cobble together a win or two. You know, the history says Jalen Hurts is going to miss a couple games. Again, fingers crossed that doesn't happen. But I have no problem with him being the backup quarterback. It's a solid signing at 5 million. It was clearly the budget, 5 million, and they'll have some incentives if he does have to play, which is the worst case scenario. So he's got a little bit of a bump on the back end if he has to pay, and that's typically what you do with a veteran quarterback. It's a smart signing. It's a smart signing, and I don't even want to call it a big name. I think fans are way too excited about it. Big name trap. I'm going to call it the familiar name trap with Marcus Mariota and Greedy Williams, who we'll get to in a moment. Familiar names, recognizable names. But I mean, we got an 8-year sample size here. This is not a starting level quarterback in the NFL. Again, different things. Solid backup, but you don't want him on the field. And that's the good part of when you have a great quarterback. Other teams, and you brought up Gardner going with Shane Steichen, they don't have an answer yet. And at least in theory, from Gardner Minshew's perspective, because I was thinking about this this morning, I'm with you because of the day before. I was up till 3 a.m. So with the Slay nonsense, so I was out, and Howie's screwing me. Thanks, Howie, doing everything late nights. But I was thinking about it, and I'm saying, well, Gardner has a slight opportunity if Indy goes the way we're thinking, top 10 pick. Obviously, he's got a slight opportunity to be a bridge quarterback early in the season. And what does that opportunity give you? If you play well, they're not taking you off the field. And we all know they're taking a quarterback in the top 5. He's going to be the guy. But it's a slight opportunity. Here with Marcus, he's behind an entrenched starter. He's not getting on the field unless there's a disaster, an injury, or anything like that. So that's kind of the debate you have as a potential backup.
Sure.
Talked about Jacoby Brissett. Now he got more money, but he also got an opportunity in Washington. But I like the signing. They couldn't get Jacoby. Marcus would have been my number 2, but I wouldn't get excited about all the Chip Kelly nonsense. And we've seen enough of this guy to know what he is.
And one of the things that Marcus Mariota does bring to town on his resume that I don't know that any of the, Jimmy G, but he's going to be a guy who's actually going to get a chance to start. I'm talking about the ones who you can recognize right now as unquestioned backup with their new team. Got a playoff win. Those other guys don't have playoff wins. You hope that he doesn't need to play in a playoff game for the Eagles this year because Jalen Hurts will be ready to start whatever playoff games the Eagles are in, but he does have one to his resume that others do not. I like the signing. I think that that was as good as they could do for the price that they were playing in. We've been noting that other backup quarterbacks were getting as much as $10 million. Mariota only signs for $5 million. But Minshew was only 3.5. Okay, put them together. Who would you prefer, Marcus Mariota or Gardner Minshew? I take Mariota. So the extra $1.5 million, and both have incentives built into their contracts. Yeah, for that extra $1.5 million, I'd rather have the better player. And for the half price tag that all those other $10 million quarterbacks came at, there's no question in my mind that Mariota is a better choice. If you're paying somebody $10 million as compared to $5 million, give me the guy for $5 million who I actually think is as good a fit, if not better a fit, than any of all those other guys. So I absolutely like the signing yesterday from an Eagle perspective. You mentioned Greedy Jackson coming in.
Greedy Williams.
I say Jackson, my boy, my bad. Greedy Williams, former second-round pick back in 2019. I remember doing my study work for him in the 2019 draft. Legit second-rounder, went where most people had him plugged in. Has had a, let's be honest, disappointing career. Second-round draft pick, you hope that the guy establishes himself and you get to a point where you want to give him a second contract. That's not the case. Kind of like Rashad Penny, injuries have been an issue with his career. Missed an entire year back in 2020. But when he's played, he has not played badly. He has been a good special teams player for the Browns. I'll take whoever's word for that says it, because I'm not breaking down game film of the Browns special teams, but he had been a regular on their special teams. It's a backup move, and that's part of the general manager's job during an offseason is surely you got to fill holes in your starting lineup, and Eagles still have one or two of those. We'll get to DJ in a second. But part of it is you don't want to miss out on the opportunity to improve your backups. And last year when the Eagles needed to tap into with an injury to Avonte Maddox, their backup cornerbacks, be it slot or outside, there was a drop-off. There was, in my estimation, a significant drop-off. Is Greedy the answer? I'm not sure, but if that's what the Eagles saw him and were aggressive enough while still filling holes in their starting lineup to go out and get a better backup piece, I'll give Howie the benefit of the doubt in this one.
I like the signing from this perspective. One, I got to see the contract, got some text out. Hopefully I get these things this morning while we're on the air, but it's pretty early. I think it's going to be pretty very similar to Rashad Penny, very desirable from the Eagles' perspective. So I don't think the contract's going to be much of an issue at all. I like it from this perspective. He gets to sit and learn behind Darius Slay and James Bradbury for a year. And this is, you mentioned the slot. Forget about the slot. He can't play the slot. He's 6'2". He's a big, rangy guy. So that, to me, that's two different positions. You're right. But the Eagles have some versatility when they move CJ into the slot, if they get CJ back, or vice versa, safety slot versatility with Avonte Maddox, both of them, and CJ Gardner Johnson. And we'll see about CJ. But obviously, he's not getting the deal he wants. From Greedy's perspective, he gets to learn behind two of the smartest cornerbacks in the NFL. And he's got some talent. And that's a worthy roll of the dice, just like Rashad Penny's a worthy roll of the dice because, yeah, the injury history is the injury history, but he can play. You've already seen Penny. He can play, just if he can stay on the field. In the case of Greedy, we don't know if he can play, but sitting behind those two guys, if there's anything there, they're going to get it out of them. And from that perspective, I think it's a solid roll of the dice, as I said, solid gamble. And that's what the Eagles are doing. I mean, they're smart, they're cost effective, budgets, you get talent, but in a lot of ways, this is like we always talk about pedigree with your favorite player, Derek Barnett. Same thing in Cleveland. They're like, get this guy out of here. And Philadelphia, they're like, well, second round pick. He's got some talent. He runs a 4.37. He's 6'2". Give him a chance. And that's the way it should be. All right, he was a second round pick back in years ago. All right, forget about that. Doesn't count anymore. Now he's got a chance to learn under the two of the best cornerbacks in the NFL, but they're aging past 30. You got to start thinking about the future. Solid move.
Now, much like with Rashad Penny, injuries are a big factor in trying to decide whether a guy can play or not. It's still projection. You're working off what you believed when a guy doesn't get a chance to get out there. Cleveland decided not to play him. He was certainly more eligible and playing just special teams this year. But when injuries factor in, that's what makes it a roll of the dice. And sometimes you come up craps. If you sign a player who's got an injury history and when you give him the chance to play, doesn't get the job done, you can't just go, well, we didn't know. Well, yeah, you did. When you signed him to the contract, you said you believed he could play. Then if he gets the chance and he can't, guess what? You got it wrong. But sometimes if a guy doesn't get a chance to play because of injury and then he can stay healthy and play well for you, well, that's a major win. There's with the two signings that the Eagles have made for the undervalue, not a lot of payment, certainly more upside than downside. They're banking on upside. They're banking on these two guys staying healthy. Now, best case scenario, kind of like the quarterback position, you hope Greedy doesn't need to get on the field because you've got your
that was the great thing about corner. Slay and Bradbury stayed healthy for the most part. Slay had a couple concussion troubles where he missed parts of games, but never a game. And Bradbury was healthy the whole season. So they never had to go to Zach McPherson on the outside or Josh Jobe on the outside or anybody else on the outside. And I don't think that would have went well, except for a very small period with Zach. And here, now they have Greedy Williams to throw in the mix. And it doesn't necessarily mean Zach McPherson isn't going to be the top backup, but it gives you a lot of versatility and it gives you competition. And Zach, I've always thought, is better suited to play inside anyway. So maybe they move him inside to be the backup slot because now you have a more tangible option as a backup outside the numbers. So from that standpoint, you can see some of the versatility it might give Sean Desai, but it all comes down to can he play or can he play? And I think it's a great situation for a young player. If you're a young corner in this league and you get to learn behind Slay and Bradbury, it doesn't get any better than that.
And hopefully something Greedy can take advantage of this year. All right, one quick thought on the news yesterday, not a player involved signing. Well, I guess it is an extension involved signing before we punch up our first guest. There were several reports out there that Darius Slay was coming back to the Eagles on a no new money deal. Well, we still don't have all the details of the contract, but I can guarantee you there's new money attached to it because it's a 2-year contract extension. So his contract stays in place this year, maybe reworked, but still in place, and 2 more years on the back end with $23 million guaranteed. That entire guarantee is not in this year. I can guarantee you that, John McMullen. So there is guaranteed money in future years. The devil will be in the details, and they haven't come out just yet. But there was a bit of a commitment by the Eagles to get this done and be able to redo Slay's deal for this season.
Yeah, it was a compromise. This is going to be very Eagles tilted. And we'll see when it comes out. As you said, the devil's always in the details. My guess is it's 2 years, and he's guaranteed $23 million. So if you think at it from that perspective, $11.5 million per year, he was set to make $17.5 million a year. That's pretty good from the Eagles' perspective, and that's what I think ultimately it's going to be. But you work it in a way where the player is not going to feel bad because the contracts in the NFL are very complicated, and people are already going, Slay better keep himself in shape so he can play in 2025. He ain't playing on the third year of this deal. Trust me. If he plays well, he's not going to want to play on the third year of this deal. And he's going to want more money. But at that age, it's going to be very Eagles tilted. But they did right. And the bottom line is his guaranteed money was up. So he was set to make $17.5 million this year. And if he's on the roster week 1, that money's guaranteed as a vested veteran. But you got to get to week 1 before that money's guaranteed. Now he's got $23 million of it guaranteed. So he got a little bit of a bump, as you mentioned, a little bit of new money. But it's better from the Eagles standpoint, if that makes sense. And that $26 million cap number goes away, right, which is why you can sign the Marcus Mariotas and the Greedy Williams of the world and do some other maneuvering as well.
Right. So we'll wait on how it's actually played out, spread out over the course of the 3 years. That's the thing that surprised me. And oh, by the way, you're right. That third year will never see the light of day. 2024 is now in play. 2023 is locked in. 2024 is in play. 2025 is a pipe dream. Yeah, he's never going to see that. The Eagles aren't.
And honestly, Jody, I guarantee you, if he plays well, I guarantee you 2024 is a pipe dream. They're going to be talking about another adjustment to the contract. So this is about salary cap relief in the short term and saving face for the player a little bit. And the Eagles got it done. Credit to Howie Roseman and Jake Rosenberg.
He is John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. Appreciate you streaming in on football free agency week. Birds have done quite well, as a matter of fact. That's my opinion. John's giving you his, and we're going to get a third coming up next. Our buddy, Jeff Kerr, CBSSports.com, the host of Good Morning NFC East, is going to jump in with us next here on Birds